In a bustling town surrounded by lush green hills and flowing rivers, there lived a young girl named Anaya. Anaya was bright and beautiful, her skin glowed like the morning sun, and her long hair fell in waves down her back. She had big dreams of a life far from her humble beginnings, and she worked hard in school, always hoping to stand out and be noticed by people of importance. Anaya's mother, Sita, was the reason Anaya could pursue these dreams. Sita was a quiet, gentle woman with calloused hands and a warm smile. She worked long hours cleaning houses and doing laundry for wealthier families, scraping together enough money to send Anaya to a good school. Sita's life revolved around her daughter. She wore simple, warm clothes and always walked with her head slightly bowed, as though she was invisible to the world around her. Her greatest pride and joy was Anaya, and she often said to herself, "One day, my daughter will rise high, like a star, and I will watch her shine." As Anaya grew older, she became increasingly conscious of the differences between her family and the families of her classmates. Her friends had parents who worked in offices, drove shiny cars, and wore polished shoes. They lived in large homes with well-kept gardens, while Anaya lived with her mother in a small, two-room house with a leaky roof and crumbling walls. She felt embarrassed by her humble home and by her mother's work, even though deep down, she knew how hard her mother worked to provide for her. One day, Anaya was invited to a gathering at her friend Priya's house. Priya came from a wealthy family, and her home was enormous, with sprawling gardens and sparkling fountains. Excited yet nervous, Anaya prepared for the gathering, picking out her nicest dress and carefully styling her hair. Just as she was about to leave, her mother handed her a small, wrapped package. "I made these sweets for you to share with your friends," Sita said with a hopeful smile. Anaya took the package but felt a pang of embarrassment. She imagined her friends laughing at the humble homemade sweets. "I'll see if they want any," she said hurriedly, avoiding her mother's eyes, and left without looking back. At the gathering, Anaya tried to fit in, smiling and laughing with her friends. When Priya's mother asked her about her family, Anaya felt a pang of dread. "Oh, my mother, she works a lot," she said vaguely. She tried to avoid talking about her life, instead focusing on the exciting things her friends had to say. As the evening wore on, Anaya felt relieved to be away from her small home, away from the life she often felt ashamed of. A few days later, Priya invited a few friends over to her house to work on a school project. Anaya was among them, but on the day they were supposed to meet, her mother fell ill with a high fever. Sita, always determined to do her work, insisted she was fine, but Anaya knew she was too weak to go to her jobs. Feeling conflicted, Anaya agreed to stay home and help her mother with the house chores. Later that afternoon, as Anaya was helping her mother clean up, her friends Priya, Meera, and Kavya unexpectedly came to her house to check on her since she hadn't shown up for their project. Anaya panicked when she saw them approaching their humble house. She tried to think of a way to send them away without them coming inside, but it was too late. Her friends had already spotted her mother sweeping the floor with her rough, calloused hands. "Oh, is that your maid?" Priya asked, a look of mild surprise on her face. Without thinking, Anaya's face flushed with shame, and she blurted, "Yes, that's our maid. She helps around the house." She could feel her mother's eyes on her, but she couldn't bring herself to look back. Her friends, none the wiser, seemed satisfied and even praised Anaya's maid for keeping the house tidy. They didn't linger, moving on to talk about their project, but the air felt heavier around Anaya. She felt a deep pang of guilt but brushed it off, telling herself it was just a small lie. After all, her friends didn't need to know everything about her life. When her friends left, Sita looked at Anaya, her gentle eyes filled with sadness. She didn't say a word, but Anaya could see the hurt on her mother's face. That night, Anaya lay in bed, unable to sleep. Her mother had given up everything for her, had worked tirelessly to provide for her education and future, and yet she had called her the maid. She hated herself for those words, yet she didn't know how to fix the shame she felt. Over the next few weeks, Anaya noticed a quiet distance between herself and her mother. Sita continued to work as usual, but her eyes held a sadness that Anaya couldn't ignore. The guilt gnawed at her, but she didn't know how to apologize. The next weekend, there was a grand event at Anaya's school, a cultural celebration where students would perform traditional songs, dances, and plays. It was one of the biggest events of the year, and families from all over town would attend. Anaya had been selected to sing a solo, and she was thrilled. On the day of the performance, Sita came to watch her daughter, standing at the back of the crowd in her simple sari, her hands clasped together as she watched Anaya with pride. Anaya noticed her mother's presence but felt a mix of pride and embarrassment, hoping no one would ask who she was. When Anaya took the stage, she glanced at the crowd, catching a glimpse of her mother's face filled with love and pride. As she began to sing, memories flooded her mind, her mother sewing her clothes by candlelight, her mother's hands worn from hard work, her mother's smile even when she was exhausted. The guilt she had buried for weeks rose up, overwhelming her, and her voice faltered. The audience noticed her hesitation, murmuring softly, but Anaya took a deep breath and continued, finishing the song. She left the stage quickly, feeling as though a weight was pressing on her chest. Outside the auditorium, she found her mother waiting, her face still glowing with pride despite the cracks of sadness in her eyes. Unable to hold back her emotions, Anaya fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry, Ma. I'm so ashamed of what I said to my friends. I called you my maid. I thought it would make things easier, but I was wrong. I've been so selfish and foolish." Sita knelt beside her, taking her daughter's hands in her own. She didn't say anything at first, just held her close, and after a moment, she whispered, "Anaya, I have never wanted you to be ashamed. I did this all for you so that you could have a better life than I did. But remember, my love, there is no shame in hard work, no shame in love and sacrifice. I am proud to be your mother, no matter what." Anaya hugged her mother tightly, feeling a deep sense of peace wash over her. From that day forward, she introduced her mother proudly, sharing their story with those around her, honoring the love and sacrifice that had shaped her life. The people in their town soon came to admire Sita, for she was more than just a mother or a worker, she was a symbol of resilience and unconditional love. And Anaya, having learned the value of honesty and gratitude, never again hid the truth of her origins. Her mother became her hero, the one person she would always look up to with admiration and love. After that heartfelt moment, Anaya became a changed person. She no longer shied away from her roots or her mother's sacrifices. Instead, she carried them as badges of honor. At school, she began to talk openly about her mother's hard work, about the long hours Sita put in to provide for her, and about the unwavering love that supported her through every step of her journey. Some of her friends were surprised to hear these things, but slowly, they came to understand and respect Anaya's mother as well. Priya, who had once called Sita the maid without knowing the truth, felt a pang of guilt and came to Anaya privately to apologize. "I'm sorry for the way I acted," Priya admitted. "I didn't know, but now I see how strong your mother is. You're lucky to have her." Over time, Anaya's home became a place her friends visited openly and eagerly. They no longer saw it as small or plain, instead, they admired the warmth and love that filled it. Sita would often make tea and snacks for them, and the friends would sit on the floor, sharing stories and laughter. Anaya felt a growing sense of pride each time she introduced her mother to someone new, calling her the woman who taught me what it means to be strong. But the most significant change was in Anaya's relationship with her mother. She began to help Sita with her work, not out of obligation but out of respect and love. She would join her mother on weekend mornings, rolling up her sleeves to wash clothes, sweep floors, or cook meals for families in the town. The work was tiring, but each task strengthened her bond with Sita and gave her a newfound understanding of the life her mother had lived. Sita, for her part, found joy in sharing these moments with her daughter. She taught Anaya the skills she had learned over the years: how to scrub clothes without damaging them, how to balance heavy water pots on her head, and how to prepare meals with the simplest ingredients. "These are the things that have kept us going," she would say with a smile. "We don't need riches, we need love, patience, and strength." As Anaya grew older, her academic success continued, and soon, she earned a scholarship to study at a prestigious university in the city. The day she received the acceptance letter, she rushed home and found her mother washing clothes by the riverbank. With a heart full of joy, Anaya shared the news, and Sita's face glowed with pride. "You have worked so hard, Anaya," Sita said, embracing her daughter. "I always knew you would do something wonderful with your life." But even as the excitement of her future filled her heart, Anaya hesitated. "Ma, I don't want to leave you alone here. I'm worried about you." Sita gently took her daughter's hands. "Anaya, I want you to go. You have my blessing. This is the life I dreamed for you. I will be fine here. I have our home, our friends, and the work that gives me purpose. But you have the chance to fly." And so, with a heavy yet hopeful heart, Anaya left for the city. Life in the city was vastly different from her little town. Her classmates came from wealthy families, wore expensive clothes, and often spoke of vacations abroad and gifts from their parents. At times, Anaya felt out of place, but the memory of her mother's strength and humility kept her grounded. She wore the simplest clothes and used her time wisely, working hard in her studies and building friendships with people who valued her honesty and kindness. Every night, she called her mother. They would talk about their days, and Sita would always end the call with, "Remember, my dear, stay humble and true to yourself. Success means nothing if you lose your heart along the way." As the years passed, Anaya graduated with top honors and quickly secured a job with a company that valued her intelligence and determination. She saved diligently, sending money home to her mother and, eventually, buying a comfortable home for Sita in the city so they could live together once more. When Sita arrived in the city and saw the home Anaya had prepared for her, tears filled her eyes. "All this, my child?" she asked, amazed. "It's for you, Ma," Anaya replied, her voice filled with love. "For every sacrifice you made, every hardship you faced. This is the life you deserve." Sita, though unused to such comfort, adapted quickly. She filled their home with her warmth, cooking meals that reminded them both of the little town they'd come from, telling stories of their past and laughing together. And each evening, as Anaya returned home from work, Sita would greet her with a smile, reminding her that no matter how far they had come, the love and strength they had shared in their small home would always be the heart of their lives. Anaya grew in her career, and with each success, she remained true to her mother's teachings. She never let wealth or position change her, and she made sure to give back to her hometown, starting programs for families who worked hard like her mother had, supporting children who dreamed of brighter futures. She made it her mission to tell others of her mother's sacrifices and the values she had taught her, inspiring many to honor and appreciate the strength of those who worked humbly in the background. Sita lived out her days with pride, watching her daughter become the compassionate, powerful woman she had always dreamed she would be. She knew that, in her own way, she had succeeded too, not by gaining wealth, but by raising a daughter who understood the true meaning of love, respect, and resilience. Their story became well known in their community, a testament to the power of a mother's sacrifice and a daughter's journey to understanding. And in the end, as people came to Anaya for advice or guidance, she would always say, "Everything I am, I owe to my mother. She may have had rough hands, a simple life, and no titles, but she taught me the most valuable lessons I could ever learn. And so, their legacy lived on, not in riches or fame, but in the lives they touched, the strength they shared, and the bond that nothing in the world could ever break.